I'm Chris Morrell from the PlayStation blog Inside 2K Marin. We are talking BioShock 2 for PS3. I have with me Melissa, senior producer, Hogarth, lead environment artist. And we tweeted out about a couple hours ago, apparently you guys have a very popular game, BioShock 2. Who'd have thought? We got tons and tons of tweets and questions, so let's get into it. This first one is from Nathsies. How long is the single-player campaign, and will we expect the twists in the storyline? Can we expect twists in the storyline?
Sure. I would say, thanks. I would say that the single-player campaign is comparable in length to the original BioShock. As far as twists in the campaign go, people always ask that. They want to know if there's going to be this wild twist, like there was in the original BioShock. I can say that, I guess, we don't think of it as something that's necessary for the story. It's a twist in the plot is a narrative device that sometimes writers, employ to make something more interesting. I don't want to say if there is one or if there isn't one because I don't want to spoil anything. We sort of acknowledge that it's one tool that writers can use to, make a narrative interesting.
And one thing that I want to add is, remember, it's BioShock, so it's all about choices. So the game totally supports somebody who just wants to run and gun through and doesn't really care about the story, because there are people like that. And so in those cases, they can often find that their playtime is a lot less than people who maybe are like hunting for every diary and so forth. So, keep that in mind.
But that said, it is obviously the first BioShock had a great story, and a lot of people are asking, including Einzelwolf, how strong is the story in this game, and did you put the same emphasis on it?
As far as the strength of the story, I mean, that's pretty subjective, so we got to leave that up to the audience, and obviously I don't want to spoil anything. In terms of emphasis during development on the story, our creative director, Jordan Thomas, tried to develop the story in the same way that the creative director did, Ken Levine, on the original one. So absolutely, story was emphasized as one of the most important things of a BioShock IP from day one. So yeah, absolutely. The writing is top-notch, and I think people who are interested in game stories are going to love it.
And so the first story, as Agent Ken points out, had philosophical ties to Ayn Rand, and is there any of that in the sequel?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there is. I think the best way that I've always put it, because we have a lot of people that want to know, is there somebody, Andrew Ryan was based on Ayn Rand in the original BioShock, and we know that there's this new villain in BioShock 2, Sophia Lamb. Is she based on somebody in particular? I think that there may be some more esoteric answers to that question in terms of people that her philosophies are very related to. She is the philosophical antithesis of Andrew Ryan. She's all about collectivism and the idea that the individual is weak and the power of the group is really strong, which is the opposite of Ryan. But I think BioShock, the philosophical messaging that BioShock has always stuck to is one of I guess it's a condemnation of extremism. So BioShock 2 condemns extremism on the other end of the spectrum. So it does carry the same, sort of intellectual arguments that the original BioShock carried, just on the other end of the spectrum from Ayn Rand and Andrew Ryan.
And I think as we have reached out to our fans, a lot of people, we had a lot of questions which I was surprised by, asking, was it difficult to come up with a concept for the sequel? And Jasmino924 points that out, because I think it's because the first game was so good. Like, how difficult is it to create a new game when your predecessor was just amazing?
Yes, it was very difficult to create the game. I think that a lot of the, it was trying to find the balance between what is it that makes BioShock BioShock, Obviously it's not going to turn into like a science fiction alien battling game or a World War II shooter or something. It still has to be BioShock, but at the same time we have to keep it fresh for people who have played the original one. So that was the challenge. I think the sort of generalized concept of the game is sort of figured out and is really part of the IP, which is, it's a first-person based game that takes place mostly in interiors, and you have plasmids and you have weapons, and we knew that was a successful formula for the first BioShock, so we didn't want to change that around, especially only in the second installment of the franchise. But trying to find that balance was the challenging part, and I think we did that by I always like to call it shifting a few perspectives around. So in BioShock 2, you play a Big Daddy this time, which allows you to view the world of Rapture from a different perspective. You see it from the Big Daddy's boots. You get to go outside into the ocean sometimes. You are much more intimately related to the little sisters and how they function in the environment and how Adam is collected and how the Adam economy is managed. So, those I think that was how we kind of made it fresh for people who played the original one, but still stuck to the core concepts of BioShock.
Yeah, and I can also see how people think, oh God, that's going to be really tough, especially if they think that we were going to continue the story of Jack, because yes, Jack in BioShock 1 had a very a beginning, middle, and end, a very distinct end. So, I think people, we've also gotten the question a lot of times, like, does BioShock 2 mean that one of the two endings from BioShock 1 is valid? And that's the answer is both are valid. We take that into account, and we wanted to make sure that BioShock 2, story-wise, did not negate anyone's choice from the first game.
That said, I'm going to jump to a question later on that we had from Cloud Strife. Will we see anything about Jack and what happened to him?
We won't see, you're not going to see Jack, but you do see evidence of Jack having been through Rapture, and you have characters that you encounter throughout the game. Well, certain characters and certain parts of Sophia Lamb's following, I guess, are attached to Jack and his deeds. I guess that's as much as I really want to say about it. But Jack is kind of a footnote in BioShock 2. We really wanted the narrative to exist totally on its own. So, we don't want people to play BioShock 2 who have not played the first one and be totally mystified. It's a very approachable game for people that have not played the original one. But we did, Jack is an important part of Rapture's history, so he's in there as kind of a footnote.
And for those of you that have obviously been following along with BioShock 2 Big Sisters this time around, David 111 specifically wants to know, will the encounters with the Big Sisters be few or many?
As far as Big Sister encounters go, they will be many, except I guess the number of them will depend on how you deal with little sisters throughout the game, how many little sisters you choose to adopt or harvest, and whether you choose to adopt or harvest them. Those choices, that they directly affect how many times you are attacked by big sisters.
Interesting dynamic. I actually didn't know that. And moving on from Yanksh, I did not pronounce that right, I'm sure. Asking if there will be future DLC for this title, and wants to know where my Big Daddy plushie is.
Apparently that's in the mail. But DLC is it's important nowadays, like for any big game, and that's something that we've learned from our previous iterations on BioShock, and something we are fully supporting for BioShock 2. Unfortunately, we can't discuss any details, but we will have DLC.
Sounds like a good answer to me. Let's move on to Jason Legacy. I want to know if BioShock 2 will have the same plasmids, or if there are going to be different new plasmids.
BioShock 2 has a lot of the same plasmids that you had in the original BioShock, because we felt like they're very, elemental ways to interact with the world, the kind of fire and ice and electricity things. There is one totally new plasmid called Scout, but I think more importantly, the incinerate and cryo. Oh my god, Winter Blast. Thank you, Melissa. Sorry, we have a lot of code names for stuff around here. Winter Blast and Incinerate and Electrobolt plasmids. Now they each have 3 different levels of attack, but rather than just having them increase in power as you upgrade them, they actually increase, or they actually change in functionality. We realized we didn't just want people to, I got Electrobolt 2, it just does like a few extra points of damage to an enemy. Now you actually use the plasmid differently when you upgrade it. So it feels like the plasmids are a little bit more interesting as you progress through the plasmid tree.